Good evening, everyone. In the last session, we completed our discussion related to EBS. EBS stands for Elastic Block Store, which is used to store the data. There are two types of EBS volumes are available. One is EBS root volume, another one is EBS additional volume. When we create EC2 instance, by default root volume will be created. We cannot delete the root volume from the EBS because root volume is mandatory for the EC2. Root volume contains operating system. Then next one. If you want to take the backup of the volumes, then we will go for the snapshots concept. Fine. After that, we discussed about lifecycle manager. Lifecycle manager is used to configure how frequently you want to take the backups of the volumes. Volume backup is called as a snapshot. Remember that volumes are zone specific, snapshots are regional specific. From the volume, we will create the snapshot, and from the snapshot, we can create the volume that we discussed in the last session. And next section, that is network and security. Network and security. Guys, do you know security groups? We have created several times security groups. Do you know what is a security group? Do you know what is a security group? What is the purpose of security groups? Security groups are used to configure who can access our EC2 instance and what our EC2 instance can access. Inbound rules will be available and outbound rules will be available in the security group. AWS is providing some default security groups, and we are creating our own security groups also. Here already we have created a security group which is used for allowing the traffic, inbound rules. What are the traffic? What traffic I'm allowing? I'm allowing HTTP protocol traffic and I'm allowing SSH traffic. So if anybody send a HTTP request to the 80 port, then that request I want to allow. If anybody accessing our EC2 instance with SSH protocol with the port number range as a 22, then I want to allow. Like this, we can configure security groups in our EC2. All right. Security groups we have in the EC2, which we are also calling as SJET. What is the purpose of the security groups? Security groups are used for configuring inbound and outbound rules for our EC2 instance. Security groups are used to configure inbound and outbound rules for EC2 instance. EC2 instance. Now, here I'm taking one EC2 instance with Linux OS. I'm taking one EC2 instance with Linux OS, that is Amazon Linux. EC2 instance which is having Linux operating system. Do you want everybody to access your EC2 instance, or you want to secure your EC2 instance? We want to secure our EC2 instance. So that's where here we can configure some inbound rules, and here we can configure some outbound rules. Inbound rules and outbound rules we are going to configure. This is IN rules. That means who can access our EC2. Inbound rule will be configured and outbound rule also will be configured. Out rule, in rule and out rule will be configured. What is the meaning of in rule and out rule? Who can access our EC2? Who can access our EC2? And what our EC2 can access? What our EC2 can access, that will be configured. Inbound rules will decide who can access our EC2 instance. Inbound rule will decide who can access our EC2 instance. Okay. Outbound rule will decide what our EC2 can access. Outbound rule will decide what our EC2 can access. Inbound rule will decide who can access our EC2 instance, and outbound rule will decide what our EC2 can access. Are you able to understand this? What is the difference between inbound rule and outbound rule? Inbound rule will decide who can access our EC2 instance. Outbound rule will decide what our EC2 can access. Now, as of now, we have created several inbound rules. Now, I have taken one EC2 instance. For this EC2 instance, I have created inbound rules. By default, inbound rules are not going to allow. By default, all the inbound traffic is denied. By default, all inbound traffic is denied in EC2, and outbound traffic is allowed. Our EC2 can access anything. Our EC2 instance can access any network which is running outside, but nobody can access our EC2 directly. That means the default inbound rules are denied and outbound traffic is allowed. Inbound traffic is denied by default, outbound traffic is allowed. If we want to allow the traffic, per EC2, if we want to allow the traffic per EC2, then we have to configure inbound rules. Already we configured inbound rules. SSH protocol port range 22. I configured as an inbound rule. Then I configured one more thing, RDP protocol, port range 3389. What is that, guys? 3389 is the port. And we configure HTTP protocol whose port range is 80. And I configured, we can in the future we are going to configure HTTPS protocol whose port range is 443. For HTTPS. If we want to allow SSH client to access EC2, then we need to configure inbound rule as SSH. If you want to allow somebody to access your Windows instance, then you need to open RDP port. If you want to allow somebody to access your server using HTTP protocol, then you need to configure HTTP port with range 80. If you want to allow somebody to access your server which is having HTTPS protocol, then you need to open HTTPS protocol. All right, let's go for security groups here. AWS is providing several security groups. We can also create our own security group. We can also create. Is there any billing for the security group, guys? We don't have any billing for the security group. As many security groups you want, you can create. There is no bill for the security group. Then click on create security group. It is asking your security group. Now I'm going to give Ashok IT SG, Ashok IT security group. You can give description for that. VPC by default, leave it. What are the rules it is allowing? What is the rules it is asking, guys? Inbound rules. So is it mandatory to add the inbound rules? By default, what is the status of the inbound? By default, all inbound traffic is, inbound traffic is denied, outbound traffic is allowed. Inbound traffic is denied and outbound traffic is allowed. Now, I want to allow the people to connect to my instance by using PuTTY. PuTTY will use which protocol? SSH. So what I'm going to specify here? I'm going to specify SSH protocol. What is the range of that protocol? 22. Custom 00. Any IP address. From any IP, from any machine you can use the PuTTY, then you can access our EC2. Okay. I want to allow people to access my machine by using a protocol called HTTP or RDP. RDP port range is going to be 3389. I want to allow the people to access my machine by using HTTP. Port range will be 80. I want to allow the people to access my machine by using HTTPS protocol, which is having 443. Can I say all these are inbound rules? Can I say all these are inbound rules that I'm adding? That means by using SSH protocol, you can connect to EC2. By using RDP, by using HTTP, by using it like this, you can configure instances. You can configure inbound rules. Now, as it is a Linux machine, people will connect to this machine by using SSH protocol. I configured it. In this instance, I'm going to run a web server to run the web application. That web server is a Tomcat server which will run on the port number 80. So I want to allow the people to access that HTTP server. That's why I'm adding HTTP protocol. Guys, for example, I want to allow only specific IP address. I want to allow only specific IP address. Can we configure that particular IP only? Can we configure that particular IP only? I want to allow only this person 192.168.0.0.1. Then what is the meaning of that? Only this particular IP I am going to allow to access. Actually, we cannot configure like this. There is a concept called CIDR block is available. CIDR block we need to configure that only that CIDR block people allowed to access our EC2 instance. What is that CIDR block? What is that IP range that we are going to discuss in the coming classes? So basically, you got the concept. What is the inbound rule? Inbound rule is used to specify who can access our instance. By default, inbound rules are denied and outbound rules are allowed. So what is the default outbound rule? All traffic is allowed. Whatever you want, you can access from the EC2. If you want to, you can configure that. If you want, you can configure my application should send only HTTP request. My application should send only HTTP request. That outbound rule I can configure, or else you can delete it. By default, everything is allowed in the outbound rule. Like this, you are going to create security groups in the EC2. Once the security groups are created, we are going to assign that security group for our instance. How can we assign the security group for the instance? Select the instance action. Select the instance action. There is a concept called a networking. There is a concept called security. Change security group. Change security group. So what is the security group available? My Linux security group is available like this. You can add the security group. Now I have selected this, add the security group. One security group is added. You can remove it. So I have created my security group and I have added that security group for my instance. So security groups are having inbound rules and outbound rules. So based on your requirement, you can configure that. By default, all the inbound traffic is denied. If you want to allow anybody to access your EC2, you need to add an inbound rule. By default, all the outbound traffic is also allowed. That means your EC2 can access anything which is running outside that. Your EC2 can access anything. By default, everything is allowed for outbound. By default, everything is denied for inbound. So based on the requirement, we can configure inbound rules and outbound rules for the security group. And AWS is giving some default security groups. And based on the requirement, we can create our own security group and we can attach that security group to our EC2 instance. Already we have done several times creating the security groups and attaching the security group to EC2 instance. AWS is providing some default security groups. AWS providing some default security groups. Based on the requirement, we can create our own security group and we can attach to EC2. Based on our requirement, we can create our own security group, and we can attach to EC2 instance. Based on our requirement, we can create our own security group and we can attach to EC2 instance. That is very simple topic, security groups concept. That is very simple topic, security groups concept. Are you clear with this point? Are you clear with this point? Are you clear with this point? What is the security group? Clear, guys? Yeah. Next one, another important topic, types of IPs in the EC2. Next one, types of IPs in the EC2. Very important topic, guys. Types of IPs in EC2. There are three types of IP address, IP, Internet Protocol. IP stands for Internet Protocol. IP stands for Internet Protocol. IP means address of the computer. IP means address of the computer. IP means address of the computer. Types of IPs. In AWS, we have three types of IPs. In AWS, we have three types of IPs. We have three types of IPs. First one is private IP. First one is private IP. Second one is public IP. Third one is elastic IP. Guys, what is IP? IP stands for Internet Protocol. IP stands for Internet Protocol. IP is used for identifying the computer. IP is called as address of the computer. In AWS, we have three types of IPs. In AWS, how many types of IPs we have? In AWS, we have three types of IPs. One is called private IP, second one is called public IP, and third one is called elastic IP. Okay, all right. Now, we are connecting to AWS from our laptop. That means we are using EC2 instance with AWS help. We are launching EC2 instances in the AWS and we are connecting to that EC2 instance. If we are launching EC2 instances in the AWS and we are connecting to that. We are launching EC2 instances in AWS and we are connecting to EC2 instances. We need internet for this connection. We need internet to connect from our machine to EC2 instance, because EC2 instances are running in the data center. In the India, we have Mumbai region. In the Mumbai, we have three data centers. In one data center, I have created EC2 instance called 1A. I have created one EC2 instance in the Mumbai region. For that EC2 instance, I'm connecting by using my personal computer. This is my EC2 instance. This is my EC2 instance. Where this instance is available? Mumbai 1A. Mumbai region and 1A availability zone. Now I have one computer. I'm sitting in Hyderabad, guys. This is my PC. This is my personal computer. I'm connecting from my personal computer to EC2 instance. EC2 instance is a virtual computer. I cannot see that computer, but I can perform operations on that computer. This is my personal computer. I am connecting from my personal computer to EC2 instance. I'm connecting from my personal computer to EC2 instance. I'm connecting from my personal computer to EC2 instance. In order to do this connection, I need a internet. My computer should have a net connection. Then only from my computer, I can connect to EC2 instance. My computer, I'm available in Hyderabad location, guys. And this EC2 instance available in Mumbai location, 1A availability zone. Availability zone, nothing but it is a data center where all the servers are available. 1A availability zone I am using. 1A availability zone I am using to create the EC2, and I have my personal computer. From my computer, I'm connecting to EC2 instance. For that, I need a net connection. Okay, guys, now tell me, how can I identify this is my EC2 instance? I want to connect to this EC2 instance. Every EC2 instance will have its own IP address. How I am recognizing that? I'm connecting to, now you see, I have two EC2 instances. Can you see my EC2 dashboard, guys? Can you see my EC2 dashboard? How many instances I have? How many instances I have? How many instances I have? 2. How can I connect to that instance? How can I connect to that instance? How can I differentiate those instances? How can I differentiate those instances? Using instance idea. How I am going to connect to that instance? Can I launch 100 instances in my account? Using my account, can I launch 100 instances also? Can I launch 100 instances also? Come on. Every EC2 instance will have its own IP address. When we create one EC2 instance, AWS will assign one IP for EC2 instance that is called private IP. For every EC2 instance will have its own IP address. Every EC2 instance will have its own IP. What is meaning of IP? Can I say IP is address of the computer? Can I say IP means address of the computer? IP stands for Internet Protocol. We call IP as address of the computer. In the AWS, we have 3 types of IPs. One is called private IP, another one is called public IP, another one is called elastic IP. So total there are 3 types of IPs available: private IP, public IP, and elastic IP. Now, I want to do cloud computing, guys. For my application, I want some machines. I want some machines to run my application. I don't have that much money to purchase the machines. I don't want to do the infrastructure setup on my own. That's why I'm going for cloud computing. AWS is one of the cloud provider I'm using to create the to set up the infrastructure. If I want to set up the infrastructure, first I need one computer. Which is service is giving the computer for us? In the AWS, there are 200 plus services are available. There are 200 plus services are available in the AWS. Which is service is giving you machine EC2, Elastic Compute Cloud. Elastic Compute Cloud. I'm connecting to AWS account. I logged in into AWS account. I selected my nearest region as a Mumbai. In the Mumbai, there are 3 availability zones available. In 1 year availability zone, I have created one EC2 instance. Now, tell me, this EC2 instance will have a IP or not? This EC2 instance will have a IP or not? IP address is there. Who is assigning the IP address for this EC2? Am I assigning the IP for this EC2 or AWS is assigning the IP for this EC2? AWS is assigning the IP for this EC2. Every EC2 instance will have its own IP that is called as private IP. That is called as private IP. Now you see, I have 2 instances. Let's select one instance. Can you see private IP available for the instance? Can you see private IP available? 172.31.39.39. This is first instance IP. Now unselect it, go for second instance. Second instance also having a private IP or not? Second instance also having a private IP. First instance IP and second instance IPs are same. First instance IP and second instance IPs are different. IP addresses are same or IP addresses are different. Come on. First instance IP and the second instance IPs are same or first instance IP and second instance IPs are different. Every EC2 instance will have its own IP. That IP is called as private IP. That IP is called private IP. IP addresses are IP addresses managed by AWS. IP addresses managed by AWS. As a AWS user, you are not going to manage the IP. AWS is going to manage that IP. Now, when this instance is having a private IP, can I connect to that instance by using that private IP? Guys, now tell me, can I connect to that EC2 instance by using private IP? Private means what? Outside people can access or outside people cannot access that private IP? Outside people can access the private IP or outside people cannot access the private IP? Outside people cannot access the private IP. We cannot connect to the EC2 instances by using private IPs. We cannot connect to EC2 instances by using private IP. That's not possible. We cannot connect to EC2 instance using private IP. We cannot connect to EC2 instance using private IP. We cannot connect to EC2 instance using private IP. Are you guys able to follow this? It is not possible. It is not possible. We cannot connect to EC2 instance using private IP. That is not possible. Are you guys able to follow this? Are you guys able to follow this? If we want to connect to EC2 instance from outside, private IPs we can access within the VPC, guys. There is a concept called VPC, virtual private network, virtual private cloud. Then we can go for private IP. By using private IP, we can connect. But here, when we go for normal EC2 instances, which is having a private IP, we cannot connect to that EC2 instance by using private IP. If we want to connect to EC2 instance from outside, if we want to connect to EC2 instance from outside, then we need a public IP. What is that, guys? Then we need public IP. Public IP. By using public IP, we can connect. By using public IP, we can connect. If you want to connect from outside to EC2 instance, we need to assign public IP. We need public IP of that instance. We need public IP of that instance. Are you guys able to follow this? Are you guys able to follow this? Private IP is mandatory for EC2 and public IP is optional. Note it, guys. Note it. Private IP is mandatory for EC2. Private IP is mandatory for every EC2 instance. Private IP is mandatory for every EC2 instance. Public IP is optional. Public IP is optional. If you want or you don't want, AWS will not care. AWS always will assign the private IP for that. Public IP is optional. If you want, you can ask AWS to assign the public IP. When we need that public IP, if you want to connect to that EC2 instance from outside, then only we need to go for public IP. Otherwise, public IP is not required, but private IP is always required. Who is assigning the private IP for the EC2? Who is assigning private IP for the EC2? Who is assigning private IP for the EC2? Could you please tell me? Could you please tell me who is assigning the private IP for EC2? Private IP is mandatory for EC2 instance. Public IP is optional. Public IP is optional. Private IP is static. Private IP is static. Private IP is static and public IP is dynamic. Public IP is dynamic. When we restart our EC2 instance, public IP will be changed, but private IP will not be changed. When we restart our EC2 instance, private IP will not be changed, but public IP will be changed. When we restart our EC2 instance, private IP will not be changed, but public IP will be changed. When we restart our EC2 instance, private IP will not be changed, but public IP will be changed. Can I prove that now? Can I prove that now? Private IP is static and public IP is dynamic. Can I prove that now? Chalo. Let me take this instance one, guys. Let me take this instance one. Let me copy this private IP. Let me copy this private IP. This is called as private IP. This is called as my private IP for this EC2 instance. Okay. Now I am going to start this instance, guys. Instance state, start this instance. My instance is getting started. My instance is getting started. Once this instance started successfully, then it will assign a public IP for that. Now you check it. You check it. Public IP is generating for that instance or not? You check it. Public IP is generating for that instance or not? Still, instance is under pending state. It will move to start state, running state. I'm starting my EC2 instance. Running. EC2 instance is running. All right. Select it. Can you see? Can you see that public IP is available? Kaha gaya bhai? Haan. Can you see that public IP is available for this? Public IP. Guys, see here. This is a private IP 3939. This is my public IP 3.110.86.249. This is my public IP. This is my public IP. Okay. Private IP is there, public IP is there. Now let me stop my instance. Stop the instance. I have stopped it. My instance is going to stopped status. Once my instance got stopped successfully, then I will restart that again. I'm going to start that instance again. Then see IP. See the IP. Select it. Yeah, it is getting stopped. Let's wait for 1 minute. Let it stop. Guys, now see, when the instance got stopped, public IP disappeared or not? Public IP is disappeared or not? Yes or no? Public IP disappeared or not? Private IP is available. Same IP is there, 3939. Yes. Now, let's start this instance again. I'm restarting my instance. I have started my instance. I have created an instance. For that, I have a private IP. Private IP assigned by AWS. That is a static IP. It is not going to change. It is not going to change. Then, once I start that instance, public IP got generated. Public IP got generated. I have stopped it. Now, again, I'm starting my EC2 instance. Again, I'm starting my EC2 instance. Come on. Yeah, it is running. It is running now. Copy this public IP. Can you see the public IP is the same? Public IP is same when I run it for first time and when I run it for second time. Public IP is the same for the EC2. Public IP is different. Changed. Public IP got changed. Are you guys clear with my point? With this, can I say that private IP is a static, public IP is a dynamic? Now see, private IP changed or private IP not changed? 172, 31, 39, 39. 172, 172, 31, 39, 39. This private IP is a static IP that is not going to change. Whenever you create the EC2 instance, for every EC2 instance, AWS will assign one private IP. That private IP is a static IP. That IP is not going to change. That IP is not going to change. If you stop, if you start, if you restart, that private IP is not going to change. That is a unique IP will be available for every EC2 instance. But when it comes to public IP is a dynamic. Every time new IP will be assigned for your EC2, that public IP is used to connect to our EC2. Can I connect to my EC2 by using private IP? Can I connect to my EC2 by using private IP? It is not possible. How can you connect to your EC2? As of now, how we are connecting to our EC2 instance? Are we connecting to EC2 by using private IP? Or we are connecting to EC2 by using public IP? We are connecting to our EC2 by using public IP. Public IP is a static IP or public IP is a dynamic IP. Public IP is a static or public IP is a dynamic. Public IP is a dynamic. What is the meaning of a dynamic? What is the meaning of dynamic? Come on. What is the meaning of dynamic IP? Guys, I want your response. Dynamic means every time it is changing. It is keep on change. Whenever you restart the EC2 instance, it is getting changed. If I restart my EC2 instance for 10 times, 10 different IPs will be generated or not? If I restart my EC2 instance for 10 times, 10 different IPs will be generated. If I restart my instance for 10 times, how many private IPs will be generated? How many private IPs will be available? Only one. Avinash, how many private IPs? If I restart, how many private IPs will be available? If I restart my instance for 10 times, only one. Private IP is a static IP. Whenever you create the instance, at that time only private IP will be created. That private IP is a static IP. If you restart the instance also, private IP is not going to change. Can I connect to the EC2 instance by using private IP? Can I connect to the EC2 instance by using private IP? No, it is not possible. It is not possible. Then if you want to connect to the EC2 instance from your computer, then you need to have a public IP of the EC2. That public IP is keep on changing. Whenever you restart your EC2 instance, that public IP is going to change. Now, do you understand what is the difference between private IP and public IP? Now, do you understand? Do you understand what is the difference between private IP and public IP? All right, right. If we want to have static IP to connect from outside, then we should go for third category, that is called as elastic IP. I want one IP address. I want one static IP for my EC2 so that I can connect to the EC2 by using that from outside. Then you need to go for what? Static IP. If we want one static IP to connect with our EC2 instance from outside, if we want one static IP to connect with our EC2 instance from outside, then we should go for what? Elastic IP. Are you guys able to follow this? If we want one static IP to connect with our EC2 instance from outside, then we should go for elastic IP concept. Elastic IPs are static IPs. What is that, guys? Elastic IPs are static IPs. Elastic IP is nothing but reservation. Elastic IPs are nothing but reserved IPs. I'm going to take one IP. I want only that IP for my EC2 so that every time I can connect to my EC2 with the same IP. Then you need to go for elastic IP. Elastic IP is used to connect from outside. Elastic IPs are static IPs. Elastic IPs are static IPs. Okay. Elastic IPs are static IPs. Are you able to understand this? Elastic IP is the same as public IP, but elastic is static, public is dynamic. Elastic IP is the same as public IP, but the only difference, public IP is dynamic, elastic IP is static. Elastic IP is the same as public IP, but the only difference is elastic IP is static. Elastic IP is static and public IP is dynamic. Elastic IP is the same as public IP, but the only difference is elastic IP is static, public IP is dynamic. In AWS, 5 elastic IPs are free. 5 elastic IPs are free. If you stop and start the EC2 instance, elastic IP is not going to change. if we stop and start EC2 instance, elastic IP will not change. If we stop and start the EC2 instance, elastic IP will not change because it is static. Elastic IP is static because it is static. It is static. Now in the AWS, sir, can I create the elastic IPs? Yes, we can create the elastic IPs. 5 elastic IPs are free of cost in the AWS. Soft limit. 5 elastic IPs are free of cost. That is a soft limit. If you create more elastic IPs, you have to pay the money. 5 elastic IPs are free of cost. 5 elastic IPs are free of cost. If you create a elastic IP, definitely you have to attach with EC2, otherwise it is chargeable. We should not keep elastic IPs idle. We should not keep elastic IPs idle. If we create elastic IP, guys, remember this point, it is very important. This is very important point. If we create elastic IP, then we should assign that to EC2. We should attach that with EC2 instance. EC2 instance. Otherwise it will be charged. Otherwise it will be charged. Don't keep elastic IPs idle. Don't keep elastic IPs idle. Don't keep elastic IPs idle. Guys, able to follow me? Are you guys able to follow me? What is elastic IP? Elastic IP is the same as a public IP. We can connect to our EC2 instance by using public IP or by using elastic IP. The only difference between the public IP and elastic IP is elastic IP is a static IP. Public IP is a dynamic IP. Elastic IP is a static IP. Public IP is a dynamic IP. Whenever you stop and start the EC2, public IP will change, but elastic IP will not change. Are you clear? Right. How many elastic IPs you can create in the EC2? Any number. You can create any number. But if you don't want to pay the money, how many are free? You can create any number of elastic IPs, but how many elastic IPs are free? 5 elastic IPs are free. If I just create elastic IPs, can I create and can I leave them? Can I keep elastic IPs idle? Can I keep elastic IPs idle? If you create and if you don't use, then AWS will charge. If you create, you have to use it. If you create, you have to use it. समझ में आया? If we create elastic IP, then we should attach that with EC2 instance. Otherwise, it will be charged. Don't keep elastic IPs idle. Don't keep elastic IPs idle. Got it? Now, here instance state is there. Let's stop this instance. Now go to elastic IPs. Yes, allocate elastic IP. Amazon pool of IPv4 addresses. Global static IP address. Create, allocate. Now, can you see this? Allocate IPv4 address. Can I say that this IP address is created? Elastic IP address allocated successfully. Elastic IP address 65.2.102.46. Then what should I do? What should I do with this? Associate elastic IP address. Associate IP address. Choose the instance. To this instance. Choose this instance. Click on associate. Now, can I say this elastic IP is associated with my instance now? Can I say this elastic IP associated with my instance now? Yes. Now let's run this instance. Let's start this instance. Let's start this instance. Now can you see which IP is coming now? 65.102.46. Go to elastic IP. Go to elastic IP. Is it the same? 65.102.46. Can you go to instance? 65.2.102.46. Go to instance. Can you see same public IP generated now? Can you see same public IP generated now? Come on, guys. Now let me stop it. Let me stop the instance. I'm stopping my instance. I'm stopping my instance. Stop it. Still it is getting stopped. Let's wait. Yeah, it got stopped, guys. It got stopped. Is it releasing the IP? IP is available or IP is released? Last time when I stop it, public IP available or public IP disappeared? Last time when I start, public IP available or public IP disappeared? Disappeared. Now the public IP available or not available? Now public IP available. Let's start our instance. Let's start our instance. Instance 1. I'm starting. Instance 1, I'm starting. Let's wait till it became running state. Now instance is running. Now check it. Public IP, that is changed or not changed? Is it changed or it is not changed? Come on, is it changed or it is not changed? It is not changed. Why it is not changed? This time, why it is not changed? Why it is not changed? Elastic IP. So do you understand the difference between private, public, elastic? Do you understand the difference between private, public, and elastic? Guys, are you clear with the concept? Right. Now, can we release elastic IP? So if you don't want to use it, guys, if you don't want to use this elastic IP, select this IP. There is an option called deassociate this elastic IP address. Deassociate. If you deassociate, then AWS may give that IP for somebody else. AWS may give that for somebody else. Action. Release elastic IP. If you don't want to use it, you release it. Then AWS will use it for somebody. AWS will use it for somebody. If you don't want to use it, you release that elastic IP. You release it for elastic IP. Right. Create elastic IP and attach that to EC2 instance. Create elastic IP and attach that with EC2 instance. After practice, detach elastic IP and release it to AWS. After practice, detach elastic IP from EC2 EC2 and then release it to AWS. Why we need to release it to AWS? Why we need to release it to AWS? Guys, why we need to release it to AWS? AWS will use it for someone else. AWS will use it for someone else. Got it? Right. Someone is asking a question. Elastic IP is a regional specific or zone specific? Elastic IP is not region, not zone. Elastic IP is universal. Elastic IP will be only one in the universe. Only one in the universe. That's why if you are not using, you have to release it so that AWS will give that IP for someone else. AWS will give that for someone else. It is universal, man. Not region, not zone. It is global. It is global. Whatever the IP that you are getting in the Elastic, nobody can use the same IP. That is reserved for only you. That is reserved only for you. If you don't want to use it, then you release it. Then AWS will use it for someone else. AWS use it for someone else. Got it? Okay. So with this, we understood what is Elastic IP. With this, we understood what is Elastic IP. Right? Create placement group, placement strategy, cluster spread partition, leave this, placement groups. Key pairs. Do you know what is a key pair? Guys, do you know what is a key pair? What is a key pair? Public key, private key. We already discussed. If you want to connect with the AWS securely, then public key and private key. Did I explain public key and private key or not? Did I explain public key and private key or not? Yes, already we discussed about it. Did I explain load balancer? Did I explain load balancer? Practically implemented load balancer or not? Practically we implemented load balancer also. In the tomorrow session, I will explain you types of load balancers. There are several types of load balancers are available. I have explained you one load balancer called classic load balancer, that is previous generation. So tomorrow we will understand what is application load balancer, what is a network load balancer, what is a gateway load balancer. After load balancer, I have to explain you auto scaling group. I have to explain you auto scaling group. Most probably tomorrow we will complete our discussion related to EC2 service, guys. One of the lengthy service in the AWS. So I have to explain you few other concepts that I'm going to talk about them in the tomorrow session. And tomorrow we are going to close our discussion related to EC2. Okay. And after that, we on the April 1st, we will complete that EC2 service. EC2 service. April 2nd, Ugadi festival will take a holiday. And Saturday, if I give holiday, Sunday also off. 2 days to Tia. We'll see. Sunday, shall we take the session or not? We can plan some session on Sunday. Saturday is a holiday because of Ugadi festival. Okay. So the remaining, what is placement group, network interfaces, placement group, network interfaces, and launch configuration, auto scaling group. I will try to complete the remaining topics in the EC2 in the tomorrow session. Once EC2 completed, then we will go for the remaining services in the AWS, guys. Don't, sir, you have taken almost 15 days for the EC2. Then when you will complete all the services in the AWS? Remaining services will take 1 day, 2 days of time. That's it. Not this much time. EC2 is the lengthy service and most important service in the AWS. Now you understand where will be the most of work in the AWS if you are implementing cloud computing for your project. Where will be the most of your work? Launching the machines, installing the servers, creating the security groups, attaching the security groups, storage EBS, volumes, snapshots, key pairs, load balancers, auto configuration. Where will be the most of the work in the project from the AWS, guys? Which service we will use mostly in the AWS for our cloud computing? EC2. So that's why I'm spending some extra time on the EC2 so that you will get the practical knowledge on that. So don't think that I'm wasting your time. Don't think that I'm wasting your time. I'm spending quality time for the EC2 because it is very important. Remaining services will not take this much time, guys. Okay, fine. So please practice the elastic IP concept for today. You just create it, assign it, then deattach, deassociate, then release it. Guys, don't hold the elastic IPs. It's not good. If you are not using the elastic IP, please give it back to AWS. If you are not using elastic IP, please give it back to AWS so that AWS can use it for someone else. AWS can use it for someone else. So check it. Do I have any elastic IP? Did I reserve any elastic IP now? Did I reserve any elastic IP now? 0. You should also make it 0 after your practice. Fine. Thank you. We'll see you in the tomorrow session. Fine. Good night, guys.